Support comes from Mosby Building Arts, helping transform crowded, dated, or inefficient kitchens into more functional spaces for daily life. Details at callmosby.com.
This is St. Louis on the Air from St. Louis Public Radio. I'm Elaine Cha. On June 5th, the Contemporary Art Museum and its neighbor, the Pulitzer Arts Foundation, will become Faeded, a high fantasy, costumed, fairy, and whimsy-filled celebration of queer arts, arts makers, and community in St. Louis. It will also feature the premiere of Faeded the Opera, a work written and produced by multidisciplinary artist Maxi Glamour. And they join us now to talk about it. Maxi, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you.
So tell us about Faeded's history. What is it, and how did it get started?
Yeah, Faeded started after the pandemic. It was an idea during the pandemic, just creating something. We wanted to create this alternate dimension, where queer people could be treated right, where people of color can take space within fantasy spaces. And so through multiple reiterations, we ended up here at Contemporary Art Museum, and it's been a wonderful journey.
Mm-hmm. Where are the places that it was, staged or held before it got to CAM?
Before it got to CAM, the idea started in an abandoned mental health facility on the south side. And that quickly moved to the Crack Fox, where we ran out of space. We had 400 people coming in, and then it also went to Mississippi Underground, which is a warehouse just a little bit north of downtown. And it's taken a journey.
And there was a virtual sort of maybe a precursor or something that came in between in 2020 as well?
Yeah, so I worked with Contemporary Art Museum for a very long time creating different programming. The first programs that I did with them was the Black Friday Ball. And so this was a way that we can bring underground Black art into high institutional places like Contemporary Art Museum. And unfortunately, the pandemic happened and we had to do it virtual. And it was amazing, actually. We got to work with people who were Vogue dancers in Paris, and we really got to connect St. Louis worldwide with that type of art form.
Mm-hmm. Now, Faeded is spelled Faeded, and you'd mentioned that it was inspired by Black Fae Day out of Atlanta. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'm Black and I love fantasy, and I think, we watch a lot of these fantasy movies like Lord of the Rings or even Harry Potter, and there are these worlds where they imagine magic and they imagine wonder and mystery, but they're imagining worlds where people of color don't exist. And so Black Fae Day was a way for Black people in particular to reclaim that magic and reclaim the stories and just share how we should be a part of the narrative.
Mm-hmm. So fairies and fantasy, queerness, queer creativity, what is the relationship or interplay among these?
Yeah, I always think about The Crucible, even though it's not a Black author, but it really, you think about the girls who were practicing witchcraft. They felt powerless, and Tituba came and they helped them feel like they were in control of their lives. And so a lot of queer people, they find themselves in pagan arts. They find themselves loving Harry Potter even after the transphobia. And so really that wonder, that mystery that we can be in control of our own lives and that we can make ourselves be whoever we want is something that is deeply rooted within queer culture.
Mm-hmm. So you've been organizing Faeded at CAM for some years now. It stretches back a decade, since like 2016, thereabouts. But when was it that you started thinking, Maxi, about writing an opera?
Yeah, I think, when the first time I saw a Puccini opera, in 5th grade, I saw La Bohème, I was like, oh, I kind of want to do that. And then I got older, I became a burlesque dancer, a drag artist, and I've created smaller pieces, 5 to 10 minutes. And then I started creating longer musical pieces that didn't have story in them. They were about 30 minutes. And I really wanted to create something that, was new and original and weird and avant-garde. And I think opera is something that people don't really think is avant-garde, and it's uncharted territory for radical queerness. And so I didn't give you a good answer of when,
No,
but
no. I mean, so you started working on this at least a year ago, right?
on this one in particular, yeah, I started working on the music a year ago.
Mm-hmm. What made it feel like, that opera was the thing to bring new to Faeded for 2026?
Yeah, I wanted previously to do it, and some of the performers were like, I don't know if I want to do that. I don't know if I have the skills. And there's a lot of artists in St. Louis, and there's a lot of really skilled artists. And so I found people who that was their skill and that was their journey. And so over the last year, I've been writing music and creating a piece that highlights them. And so, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Let's hear the first part of the first act of your opera, Maxi, Faeded.
She's a queen and she's coming for the money. She's a queen, she's so snappy that it's funny. She's a queen of the corporate jungle. And she's here ready to rumble, fighting for it all. She's ready to make the check. She'll beat you there. Come on over and meet the queen of the corporate jungle, Miss Toulouse.
So, Maxi, who are we hearing here? And how does this set up the narrative of your opera?
Yeah, that is Babyface and Fame. They are two amazing Vogue dancers. They are huge in the ball scene, St. Louis and internationally. And they're setting up the scene for Toulouse. And Toulouse is the only white character in the opera, and also the antagonist of the whole story. And so they're really just showing the corporate fairy coming into the story.
Mm-hmm. So, what is the story?
Don't you want to know? Yeah, the story is basically, it's a corporate fairy who has a briefcase that is made out of demon skin called Breviathan. And the briefcase is like, give me money, give me jewels. And then Toulouse is like, okay, I'll do that. And then the briefcase is like, actually, I want magic. And so the briefcase tells Toulouse to go to Emerald Grove and extract and exploit magic from where all the people of color in the opera are.
Mm-hmm. And those are wood fairies?
Yeah.
Right? And then there's a kidnapping as well?
There is a kidnapping. I really wanted to allegorize like ice and, the ways in which people of color get hypnotized to exploit and harm people within their own communities. So this might be a spoiler, but Toulouse definitely uses some magic to convince Babyface and Fame to join her side and then kidnap people. And then there's a whole jail part of the opera.
Mm-hmm. And I'm asking you for these because as I understand opera, people do know what the story is as they go into this space. Is that something that will be happening? Like, will people be given something of the narrative as they're entering, or is it meant to be more of a surprise?
I didn't really think about the surprise component. I want people to know that it's an anti-fascist opera with fairies and there's going to be a kidnapping and dancing. I think, the spectacle of it is definitely going to be watching it. I think kind of like Titanic, everyone knows that Jack might die at the end, but they still are thrilled the whole entire time. And so there's no Jack in this opera, but there's going to be thrills.
Mm-hmm. And we're speaking today with Maxi Glamour, multidisciplinary artist and the writer and producer of Faeded, the opera, which will be world premiering at the Contemporary Art Museum on June 5th. And that is part of an event that is a Pride Month celebration and is a collaboration, actually, between Contemporary Art Museum and the Pulitzer Arts Foundation. So Faeded is an opera, of course, so story and song are part of this, but it's also told in drag and dance. What makes that approach fitting?
Yeah, I mean, I come from the drag scene, right? I've been performing drag in St. Louis for 17 years. You know, these are the people who I've grown up with. This is the art form that I think is most true to what I love. And I think when we're, going to the symphony, going to operas, there are different types of ways that people are showing things. And I think that this isn't just for normal crowds who go to the operas. This is a way that queer people from the underground can see themselves on the stage, and it can be a segue to go seeing a Bizet play or going to see Puccini or going to see anything at the symphony.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel like that's been missing?
Yes, yeah. There's so many articles online that are definitely showing how classical music doesn't really include people of color, and so we're trying to make sure that the symphony is going to be there giving away free tickets. So if this is people's first taste, that they can go and explore more, because St. Louis is such a rich place for art, and I think that a lot of people of color, a lot of queer people, a lot of people from the underground think that there is this gatekeeping, classist barrier of entry into places like the PAL or opera houses. And while to some extent that is kind of true, I do think that music can be for everyone. And I think if people see someone like me creating something like this, then they themselves might decide, hey, I can do it too.
Mm-hmm. The dance component of this production, what kinds of dance are people going to see?
Yeah, so I helped choreograph some of it. I just do too much, but Fame and Babyface are the main choreographers from this, and they're from the ball scene. They work on pageants across the country, helping drag queens choreograph their pieces. And so I think when you're thinking of choreography for this, I would think less of like Fosse and think of more like a pageant show.
Mm-hmm. And was that informed by the talent that is here?
Yeah. I sometimes forget of how much of St. Louis made me. We have the historic Catherine Dunham with African dance here. We have an amazing, vibrant Vogue scene. I spent such a long time at Vanilla Studios learning belly dance, burlesque, and drag. And so all of it has really been influenced by my peers, my contemporaries here in St. Louis.
Mm-hmm. Let's hear a bit more from Faeded the Opera. This is another piece from Act 1, which introduces Emerald Grove.
The wind is my friend as it holds me close. I bathe in the scent of lilies and rose. I go with the wind wherever it goes. To what end I do not know. The wind is my friend as it holds me close. I bathe in the scent of lilies and rose. I go with the wind wherever it goes. To what end I do not know. Petals, remember the steps that we take. The roots keep the promises no one can break. The breeze tells the truth that words cannot make. In the hush between the give and the take, the wind is my friend as it holds me close. I bathe in the scent of lilies and rose. I go with the wind wherever it goes. To what end I do not know. The wind is my friend as it holds me close. I bathe in the scent of lilies and rose. I go with the wind wherever it goes. To what end I do not know. Slipping around and around we go, moving our sides to the to and fro, sipping on things you would never know unless you come into the Emerald Grove. Slipping around and around.
So Maxi, before this song, there's instrumental music, what sounds like Asian flute, African drums. It creates a distinct mood. And obviously, the vocalization here, the voicing does that too. As an interdisciplinary artist, is there something, Maxi, that you're doing with Faeded that is, to you, like intentionally queer insofar as opera conventions go?
Yeah. I think about queer as like being twisted, right? I think that there's like a straightness and there's an ordinariness. I think the queerness is definitely, exemplified by the fact that everyone is gay. Everyone in the opera, except for maybe Moses, is queer. I think that highlighting queer people and making sure that we are the main characters in the story is important. I think the queerness is just really using so many different musical influences in there. The song before that is, I have a whole bunch of music that I play on the flute, and I really wanted to bring that into this because I just thought it was really fun and it'd be really great to dance to. And it's not something, when you go to a drag show or you go to normal queer spaces, you're not really hearing world music. You hear more contemporary US stuff. And so I really wanted queerness to not just be our orientation, but a reconfiguration of how we are oriented towards the world that is built on queerness, is built on an intersectional queerness of liberation and justice.
Mm-hmm. And in our last minute, Maxi, what are you most excited about, with this premiere happening in just a week and a half?
Yeah, I won't be doing 7-hour rehearsals.
That's real.
We've been rehearsing so much.
Yeah.
I think, that doesn't sound like positive, but I really want to see what happens. I really want to see the work. We've put so much work into this, more than I've done a lot of musical acts, and I think that this is more work and more energy like consuming than anything I've done. And so I really want to be able to sit down and just remember the magic that we created and just hear what people say, and then, of course, do something similar again.
Mm-hmm. St. Louis artist Maxi Glamour is the writer and producer of Faeded, the opera, and organizer of the Pride Month-focused First Friday Faeded event at the Contemporary Art Museum on June 5th. For more information, visit camstl.org/calendar. Thank you so much for talking with us today, Maxi.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
This episode was produced by Elaine Shaw.
Our executive producer is Alex Hoyer.
St. Louis on the Air is a production of St. Louis Public Radio. Understanding starts here.
Do you find yourself regularly listening to episodes of St. Louis on the Air? Suggest us to a friend you think might enjoy our conversations. And leave us a review and rating on Apple Podcasts on the App Store. It's the simplest way to help people discover our show. Thanks.
St. Louis Public Radio is a member-supported service of the University of Missouri St. Louis.
Hi, I'm Laura Hamden, and my colleague Jessica Rogan and I are your daily hosts of the Gateway newsletter. We meet with the editors in the STLPR newsroom every weekday to bring you the top local stories of the day in a quick and easy 6-minute read by 6 a.m. In an age of overwhelm, it's a refreshing, thoughtful take on the news day, if we do say so ourselves. Fine-tune your daily news habit with the Gateway newsletter. Subscribe at stlpr.org/gateway.